Hi, this is Darlene, Darlene's Creative Studio. I wanted to share a little project that I'm working on today. I recently was watching some videos on YouTube with Mrs. Cogs, and I am a big planner person. I have a daily planner that I keep, and when I've been doing it since, oh gosh, 15 years since I've been working. I've been keeping some kind of a notebook or a planner. I keep a planner on my counter and I use it every day. And when I was at Michael's the other day, I came across this green Recollections. It's kind of shiny, but I came across this in the clearance section in Michael's. And Mrs. Cogs uses a Filofax, a leather one, and she does make a lot of gifts with the Recollections, and she actually will stick something to the front of her Recollections Filofaxes because they're not real leather, they're just faux leather or whatever they're made out of. But I came across this one. It has a little mark on it, so I thought it was really cheap. It was in the clearance section, and I grabbed it. It does have some little lists and stuff in it that I grabbed as well. But I thought this would make a nice little project for things that I'm working on each month. So I'm going to make some dashboards. She makes her own dashboards out of paper and stuff. Now the inside, it's quite large, and they have the tiniest little pages in here. So I'm thinking I'm going to make my dashboards a little bit larger. So I was playing around with it, and I grabbed some file folders, just some regular file folders. And this is what I came up with for size that I want to use. So they're a little bit bigger than the pages, and they'll stick out a little bit more, but they'll still be inside the book in the right height. So these are 7 inches by 8 1/4. I cut it 7 inches wide by 8 1/4 long, and then I cut out some tabs, so it ends up being probably 6 7/8 or something wide, but I wanted to make little tabs for each month. So I started with that, and then I came across this book that I had bought at a thrift store, and it was the Avon Calendar of Roses from 1984, and no one had used it. And what it was just a little journal planner type thing, but it was so old from way back when, so I wouldn't have been able to use it because the dates are all wrong. But what it did have was, I'm going to use the title page, it had monthly pages of flowers with the type of flower on it, and there was at least 2 or 3 per month. So what I've done is I've taken one for each month, and I think I'm going to use these for my dashboards, my dividers for each month. And they're just beautiful. They're from, I'm sure, one of the libraries online, the public domain libraries, and then it just had different little things like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them down to this size, and this is what I was originally doing. I was going to cut them down, put them on attach them to the file folder, and then I've saved the month. Sorry, I didn't want to lose it, so I put it in a little bag because I have so much junk on my desk. Okay, so there's the month, and I was just going to attach the month there, and that was going to be my dashboard. But I thought it looked awfully plain, and I didn't want to start adding lace and all that kind of stuff. So when I was out the other day, I was in my dollar store getting those magnetic sheets, and I came across this little package of decorative file folders, and it has 6 inside of it. And it has 2 of these, and they're the burgundy on the inside. And then it has this brown one. And then it has a black one with a cream on the inside. And there's 2 of each. So what I thought I would do, I tried the beige ones, and I thought the flower kind of disappeared again. Although it's pretty, I thought it disappeared a little bit more. So I thought what I would do is take these burgundy ones. So I've got 6, you're going to need 6 file folders. And then what I did was, just going to move these out of the way, because we're going to need, 1 file folder is going to make 2 dividers, so we're going to need 6 of them. And I want to create this layered tab look. So I took one of the burgundy ones and I cut it down to size, and I'm going to put that on top of, and I just thought it gave a little bit more oomph to the background there. So that's going to be my dashboard, and I'm going to go ahead and do that with, this is December, but I'm going to go ahead and do that with every month. I'm going to cut these down, I'm going to distress the edges, And then I'm going to go ahead and create tabs. Now what I was going to do, and I didn't think of this till after, I was going to switch it every other one and have it so that the second one was going to be burgundy and then the next one would be this color, but I've already cut this one, and so I've already got my second tab. But it's going to have the month on there, so I don't think it'll matter as much. And the flower. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut some of these down and show you how I make the dividers. I'm just going to move all this stuff out of the way so I don't lose anything. So we're going to take one of the file folders, and we need to cut them to 7 inches wide by 8 1/4 deep. And I'm going to try and take, and I'll see if I can find it. Yes. See how all the file folders have those little ridges where you can expand the file folder? I'm going to try and cut that part off and still get my 7 inches out of here. I just didn't like that. You won't see it as much, but I just thought may as well cut it off. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this file folder to 7 inches wide by 8 1/4, both sides. So I've gone ahead and cut these to the 8 1/4 by 7. One thing I should mention, when you're cutting your file folders, always cut the bottom off first. So always cut your 8 1/4, your length, because you're going to end up with a nice wide piece on the bottom left over. And what we can do with that bottom piece is create, I just took one of the larger pieces and I folded the edges, and we can create a little pocket on the inside of some of the dashboards. And with those little folds in, and we're going to go ahead and probably glue that on like that, it'll give you a little bit of room to put something in there because of those little flaps. If you just glue it on the edges, straight on the edges, you won't get very much in there. So always keep a little bit of extra so you can make those little flaps. So if you cut this file folder across the bottom first, so you want your 8 1/4 and cut it across the bottom, you're going to end up with a longer piece across the bottom that you can use for pockets and stuff. If you cut it to 7, then you get a little tiny piece and it won't fit with those flaps. So I may do pockets every other. So this is the one I did wrong, and this is the one I did right. And see the difference in length? Because I cut the side off first. So always cut the bottom off so you end up with larger scraps that you can reuse. Okay, so I've got my first one and my second one. So to create my tabs, I just take my envelope punch board, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the bottom one. So to create the bottom one, I need the tab at the very bottom. So I'm going to flip it over to the burgundy side. If I was doing the top one, I would leave it here, and I would put it in my punch, and I would punch the edge, and that would be my first edge of the tab. And then I would move it to 2 1/2, and I would punch again, and I'd have my tab at the top. But because I'm creating the one at the bottom, we could do it this way. I haven't got the markings on the side, so I'm just going to flip it over. So you're going to put this right in the center of your punch, and you're going to punch it. So there's the edge of my punch, and then from this edge I'm going to move it over to 2 1/2. So my edge here is on 2 1/2, and it's pushed right up against, and you're going to punch it again. So there's my tab. I'm going to take this over to my cutter, and I'm going to cut this little part off right here. So I've gone ahead and I've cut that little piece off right to the tab. Now when I flip it back over, that is now going to be my bottom tab. Okay, so that's actually what you're going to do with your top one if you're on this side. Punch it, 2 1/2, punch it, and cut off the bottom. Now for the second one, and again I'm just flipping it over because I want the one from the bottom. What we're going to do is we're going to go over 2 inches. Let me just make sure I've done this right. Punch it 2 inches. So you want your edge of your paper to be right at the 2-inch mark. You're going to punch it, and then you're going to move this edge over to 4 1/2, like that. And you're going to punch it. And then what I'm going to do is cut off this piece and this piece on my cutter. So I've gone ahead and I've cut off that piece and that piece. And all I do is when I put it in my cutter, I slide my cutter down until I hit that edge, because the little indents, you just line them up against the edge of your paper and cut those off. You just cut it that way, take it out, move your cutter down, put it back in and slide it up. So you don't want to cut that little tab off. So now when I flip it over, we now have, and again, they're hard to see because they're all the same color, but I have my top tab, my middle tab, my second one, my third one, and my fourth one. See? And they all overlap just slightly. And that's what I want them to look like. So now I have to do that with, I need 12 of them. So I'm going to do that with this one and this one, all these, and I'm going to cut them out so that they all are like this. And then I'm going to take my, where's my January? It's over here. I'm going to take my January and I'm actually going to cut it so that I leave 1/8 of an inch around the outside of my rose. And that should fit perfectly. Just going to write this in there so I don't lose it on my board. And it's a little bit, you have a little bit more room on the top and bottom, but that I'm okay with that. And then I say I'll have room for my month as well. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that, and I'm going to save my January. So I've gone ahead and cut that rose down. And the thing I've noticed with some of the older books, and I think I've mentioned this before, they are, for some reason, some of the pictures are not straight on the book pages. So you have to be very careful when you're cutting. If I'm going to be cutting out around this box of a picture, I'm going to make sure I line up the line of this box straight on my cutter, because when I cut the first one, it's a lot wider at the top than it is on the bottom here, and then I would have a funny cut. So I'm actually using this line as my guide to make sure I get a nice straight cut. So this is my January, and again I'm going to distress the edges, and that's going to go there. And then this is my strip, and I'm going to cut down the date so that it's nice and close, and I will distress that as well. Okay, so for distressing around the paper edges, I save the insides of my cereal bags. I love cereal in the morning, so I save all these, and then I put them down anytime I'm gluing or painting, I put them onto this plastic, because I was going to throw it away anyway. I reuse it and reuse it and reuse it until it's been marked up so badly, and then I just throw that in the garbage. But it's great for gluing, distressing, painting, any of that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to take my blending brush, and I'm just going to do some gentle edging around the edges of the rose. And I just want to antique the paper a little bit to make it look a little more aged. Not like it's from a brand new book. Well, a book from 1984 anyway. It's just amazing the books that people hang on to in their cupboards, and then they think, oh, I don't need that anymore, I'm going to donate it. And then somebody like myself who finds it and wants to reuse it, so that it doesn't just, I mean, most people would just throw it away because it's so many years old. But if it hasn't been written in and the pictures are still good, we can reuse them. So there we go. I'm just going to edge the edges like that. And then I've taken my January and I've just used my dabber and just quickly done around that. So let's see what this looks like. Where's my January? Where's my first one? Oh, they're laying on top of each other and they're hard to see. So this is what my January dashboard or insert is going to look like. And it just gives it a little bit more wow. I think the plain file to folder was, the page disappeared on it. So these were kind of neat, and I just happened to grab 3 of them and I just had enough. So there's my January. So I'm going to set that aside. And again, I might take, once I get these all done, before I glue them on, I might actually take some postage stamp and do that on there, and maybe stencil something in the background, or maybe add a butterfly. Just collage a little bit so that it's not just the book page, but I do have some really lovely butterfly pictures from a book, so I might add a little butterfly somewhere on the page, and like I say, a little postage stamp somewhere and make it one of those collage pages that you see a lot of people sell or make, or you get scrapbooking paper that looks like that. So I might go ahead and do that, or even stamp it with some words. But I'll play with that on a scrap piece before I actually do it on my main picture. So I'm going to go ahead and work on the other months, cutting them out and then adding them to these pages. So we'll have February, March, April, and then I'm going to cut my other file folders down to the same size. And I'll come back once I get them all cut out. What I'm doing very quickly before I cut out the picture is flipping it over and in pencil writing the month just on the back, because once I start trimming these and I cut the month off, I want to try and keep the flower in the same month. I mean, it doesn't make that much difference if we mix them up, but I'm going to try and keep them the same. So I've gone ahead and marked each of the back of them with the month so that when I trim it off, I know which one goes with which. Now that all of the flowers are distressed, I've done every month, I'm going to go ahead and start gluing them onto the file folder dashboards like that. And I will add the month. So I have done January, February, and March. Here's January, February, March, and April. And they turned out really well. So I'm going to go ahead and keep gluing these on. And April, I'm in May, and I have all the little months distressed. And I will go ahead and start gluing these on. I'll glue this one on camera just to show you what I'm doing. I'm using my Fabri-Tac, and I'm just putting on, I'm trying to make sure I get right to the edges of my paper. I don't want the edges to peel back, so we're going to make sure we get all the edges really well. And then I'm going to fill this in. Some glue on here. You can tell winter is here because it certainly is darker in my studio when it's cloudy out than it normally is. And I'm just going to flip this over, make sure I don't glue on the front of my fingers, and I'm going to try and center this as best I can before I let it drop. And then I'm going to use my brayer, and I'm going from the middle out and then the middle down like that. And we're going to add May, January, February, March, April. Right, I'm doing May. And we're just going to take May and we're going to pop that on there like that. So there's May. And like I said, I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to add all of the rest of the months onto here with the tabs. And then what I also took from the Recollections folder, really quickly I'll show you this. This came with some things that were in it. This little book was separate, but it came with some of these little papers and whatnot in it. And it did have this little plastic sleeve in it. And I'm actually going to use this plastic sleeve as my template to punch the holes, because it's the same height as my dashboard. And I'm just going to go ahead and with a pencil mark these little circles, because I don't have a hole punch that looks like this. It's got funny, it's a 3 and 3. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark those on there in pencil. And then I will take my punch, if I can reach it. No, it's getting very dark in here. I have to turn on my light. And I'm just going to punch those holes in the dashboard. Like that. And then this way, once the holes are punched and it's kind of ready to go, I can add my, my stamping and everything on afterwards. But also, if I wanted to add a pocket, now I've got the holes there to consider that I can't cover. So if I do put a pocket in here, it has to be on the inside of those holes, correct? Or I could maybe put one this way and I could slide things in there, or I can actually glue an envelope onto the back of here and slide some receipts or something like that in there. But that's something I'm going to look at for later. Right now I'm just going to finish gluing these on, punching the holes, and get those all finished, and then we'll take it from there. I have now finished all the months, attached them to the file folders. And what I'm going to do is, so I've got them all done, October, November, December. I've already punched the January one with using my template from the actual binder. So I'm going to set that aside, and then I'm going to actually use this as my template, and I'm going to make sure that these all match up perfectly. And then I'm going to go ahead and draw the circles from this and make sure that they do not move. And I'm going to go ahead and punch all of these circles like that, so they will all match evenly. I'll punch out all these circles, and then I'm going to empty out the Recollections folio, and I'm going to put these in there, and then I'm going to concentrate on making what I would call a cover, a first page. And I might use the, I think I'm going to use this as my cover on the very first page, and I'm going to see if I can somehow cut this centerpiece out and then trim it down and have that on that very first main page. And then that will be whatever I'm going to use this folio for, and then each month I'll make some papers for inside that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and punch all the holes, put them inside the folio, and start working on this. So we'll be right back. So I have now taken the insides out of the book. I've taken out all the little papers and stuff that have come with the folio. And I've I made a cover page. I took the file folder, the plain file folder, and I took that title page and I just cut the center of, I'm just trying to find it now, where it said the Avon calendar. Thought I kept it. I cut that centerpiece out with a little sharp knife, with my little sharp knife, and just went around all the edges of the plant and cut that out. So this is what I call my title page. And I will put a title here. I just haven't decided what I'm going to be using this book for. I think it's going to be projects each month or my expenses. I haven't decided yet. So that's going to be my title page. And then I have the January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, and I'm going to admit this, I got my November and my December mixed up. I stuck the wrong date on one of them, so I just left it that way. So this is my November and December. So I've got those all glued in, and those are my dividers. And then I've taken all the bits and pieces that come with the book, and I'm actually going to go through them and reuse pieces of these. There is a calendar that came with this, and it pulls out like this, and it has the other ones on the back. Now I'm going to put this in the back. I noticed that some of the holes have ripped off, and it actually got ripped out of the book. So I'm just going to take a piece of that file folder, and I'm going to glue it on to the edge right here and trim it down to the size of that and repunch the holes. And then I'm going to use this for keeping some notes, or maybe my spending or something like that. But I am going to use this calendar, so I will fix that, and then I will put that in there as well. And then I think I'm going to go through and maybe put a things to do list perhaps in each month. I think I have enough of them. If not, I'll just photocopy some, but I'm going to put a to-do list in each month. And then this book came with bucket lists, yearly seasonal bucket lists, that kind of thing. So I might use something like that. Travel bucket list. I'll put that at the back of the book. And then there's some lined pages as well. But again, I haven't decided whether it's going to be for projects and or my expense, keeping track of my expenses. So these are just some of the things that I'm going to use. Now I do have a book. It was called The History of Our House, and it's like a planner for when you maintenance and repair, when you do pest control indoors and outs. I've cut this book all up, and I think I might even use some of these pages in here as well, for recording things. Not for maintenance and stuff, but for other things. So I might use some of these pages up. They will fit in there quite nicely if I cut them back. So I've got that book that I can work on if I'm working on a project. It's got some graph paper in there for floor plans. It's got some where it says project as well, so I can use these for each month if I have a project I'm working on. So I'll just cut these dots off and then insert those into the book, make it smaller, and maybe use these again too. So I will recycle some other books and put them in here, but I'm just going to work on some of the pages. I will fix this one and go ahead and insert that one, and then I'm going to decide what I'm using this book for before I start putting the papers in. But what I'm going to also work on next and is something for the cover. I found this adhesive, peel and stick adhesive sheets, and I thought it will fit on there perfectly. I can trim it down a little bit. So I'm going to create something, and then I'm going to stick it to the adhesive, and then I'm actually going to adhere it to the front of the book. So I'll have something on the front of the book as well, and it won't interfere with the clasp. This is the perfect size. This is something that I've had in my stash in the closet. So again, I'm using up stuff that I have. So I will be doing that. And then it's got some great little pockets and stuff here. So I will make some different little cards. These are all for business cards. It's got the little pocket there, and then it's got a large pocket on the back. And then this is for creating a pad. And I think I'm going to make my own pad. And again, this is probably why it was on clearance. It's all wrinkled and buckled and that. So if I put a writing pad here, with some cardboard stuck down in here, then I'll have like a little writing pad as well that I can use. So I'm going to keep working on this, and I will keep you up to date. This is going to be the end of part 1, and part 2 will probably be the cover and deciding what I'm going to use the book for, and we'll go from there. Thanks so much for watching.